Hello, my sunnies. I'm Daycia and I'm a photographer. In today's video, I wanted to share about how to start a small business, whether if you're a potter, an artist, or a photographer yourself. I wanted to share some tips and tricks on things that I've done as a small business owner, as well as share with you how I got into this in the first place. When I came back to America, I had a really hard time finding work actually. The job market wasn't the best. It was post-COVID or somewhat during COVID, and I just really could not find work, and I was just living off of savings and whatever I had from living in Korea. And at the time, I was kind of making content on Twitch, but it wasn't enough to sustain myself, especially living in New York. When I moved to Texas just to save a little bit more money, I still really couldn't find work, and the skill sets I've had just wasn't really able to click anywhere. And so actually I had started my job as a server, and then while I was working as a server, I decided to get into photography because I have done photography freelance just for fun, and sometimes like people would pay me and it was really cool. And people said my work was really good, so I was like, oh, maybe I could try to do this as a job. And so I had a friend who was a wedding photographer, and she was giving me some tips. And then I joined some Facebook groups, and then I met another wedding photographer in that group, asked if I could shadow her, and she was so willing. And so I shadowed her for a few weddings, basically shooting as a second shooter for free. And I was just kind of getting a skill set and the knowledge on how to become a wedding photographer. I wouldn't say full time, I'm still kind of part time, but it's enough where I can kind of sustain myself. I don't think I need you anymore, so I'm gonna put you down. And so whether if you're into photography or anything artsy fartsy, then here are some tips on how to get started. So I totally understand starting a small business or photography business or whatever can be very daunting. It's kind of like, where do I even begin? Especially if you're getting into something like photography, which has a lot of cameras and lenses. And then there's also marketing yourself, which can also be confusing. And so I would say my first piece of advice is first to figure out what you actually really want to do. If you want to be a photographer, what kind of photographer? Do you want to get into weddings, such as myself? Or do you want to do portraits? Or do you want to get into pottery or painting or selling digital artwork? Kind of figure out what do you want to do, and then do a bit of research on that. But don't do too much research because I feel like it can be kind of overwhelming if you do. I would just do a few like light research, maybe find a couple people that you look up to, kind of see what they're doing and sort of maybe implement or get an idea of like how you want to take your next steps. And then I would say just slowly hone into that. That way you don't have to feel too much pressure if you decide to go all in without much knowledge or experience. I would say first do a little bit on the side, and then when you feel comfortable enough or it's somewhat sustainable enough, then go all in. But take it slowly, like don't need to pressure yourself at all. And of course, continue to practice and hone your skills, such as myself when I decided to shadow the photographer. That really helped a lot. Or if you're doing art, maybe that means creating a few projects for your friends or family, things of that sort. But the most important thing is just to have a clear goal. So what do you want to do? Do you want to start a store, for example? And if so, what's the name? Make it clear what kind of things you're selling. I am a potter. I am selling these cute mugs, or I do t-shirts full of Ghibli art or anime art. Make sure it's clear that what you want to do, and then just break those down into those smaller manageable goals. For example, you say you want to make Studio Ghibli art and you want to sell them on t-shirts. Great first step. And so now break that down. Maybe that means coming up with a name, coming up with an Instagram account. Where do you want to sell it on? Maybe Etsy or maybe Shopify. Breaking it down is a great way to kind of ease yourself into it where it's not so overwhelming. And it gives you a plan as well. And then just hone those skills and just continue to add those to your portfolio. For me, for example, when I decided to become a wedding photographer, I knew my name was going to be Daycia Photography. I created a little website, and when I was like shadowing the photographer, I used that for my portfolio. I would do free shoots a lot of times for couples, just so I can just get the experience, and then that way I just have something to show. So that way when I could finally book my first person, I already have work that they could easily see, and I'm not going into it blind, and that they know who I'm about, my style, and if that's something that they want to move forward with. So my second tip is learning how to price yourself, I know this one can be kind of confusing, but my first recommendation and step is to just do market research, see what the average is. So for example, wedding photography, the average usually is between like 2,000-3,000, sometimes more depending on the city. If you plan on selling, again, pottery, see what other people are selling and price themselves for. Same with maybe painting or crocheting. Just kind of do the research to see what other people are charging, and then also generally just look up and see what the market standard is and kind of use these other creators as benchmarks, and then start thinking, how much do you want to get paid? Because remember, people are paying you not just for your work, but your skills and the equipment that you invested into this. It takes time to market, for example, that also should be kind of included a bit in your pricing. As a photographer, I do so much extra work besides of just taking pictures. I can spend up to 10-12 hours of editing, and I do a lot of marketing, and I do a lot of phone calls and client meetings. These are all things that I need to consider when factoring in my price. That doesn't include the thousands of dollars I spend on camera equipment or editing software. And if you're an artist that requires materials, then just think about how much the material costs and factor that into your price. So let's say, for example, like you want to get paid like $30 an hour, and it takes you about 2 hours to make something, then you probably might want to price the thing you're making at about $60. And then just make sure you're factoring the material price too. So that could be $65 or $75 depending on how much your materials are. But I do think you should also consider your valuable skill set and also the equipment and time that it takes to get all this done, because there are people who are amazing painters that charge thousands and thousands of dollars. It may have only taken them 5 hours to do something, but they might charge $5,000 for it, right? But people are paying them for their unique skill set, and they recognize like their worth. Only they can provide that. And also it takes a lot of time and energy to get to that point and level. And so when you are considering your prices, just think about how valuable you are as well. I think photography is another good example, just because with wedding photography, sometimes photographers charge up to $10,000 a wedding. These people understand like how much they're worth, and they understand the value they put in. And I also think when you're just starting out, it doesn't hurt to charge just a little bit less, I personally think, just to get the experience. So for example, my first wedding, I charged very, very low. Like I said, the market standard is actually around $3,000, which I still don't charge that much. My first wedding, I charged for a 10-hour wedding plus another hour of engagement shoot. I only charged about $1,300, and I also spent like an entire day or 2 days like editing the photos. Like I spent so much time and work and energy into this wedding. It definitely was worth way more, but it was my first wedding and I just wanted the experience. I just wanted it in my portfolio. And now when I look back at those pictures and my current pictures, I can see like a big improvement in my work. And I think that's just also something to consider, especially when you're just starting out and you're just trying to like practice a little bit. I don't think it hurts to kind of lower your prices until you get to a comfortable level. And also keep in mind, there might be people who might complain or like may not move forward with you due to the pricing, but that just means that those are your ideal clients, because you want the clients that wants you for the value that you are worth and deserve. And there are people who will be happy to pay you that. Okay, so my next point is dealing with finances. And so when it comes to finances, I think that one, it's really important to make sure that you're documenting how much you're getting paid. So you can do this through Excel or Google Sheets. I personally use Pixie, which is specifically for photographers, but there are things like QuickBooks, maybe HoneyBook, I think too, is another one that you could possibly use. But I think just having like some way of calculating your prices and how much you're getting charged, and also at the same time maybe how much you're spending, and then also come tax season, you'll also be better prepared. And I think that also leads to my next point, which is having a credit card or a checking account specifically for businesses. So a business credit card or a business checking account. This just helps you keep track of all your spending. That's for businesses specifically, and then also how much money you're getting in. And so that way, when again tax season comes, you'll be better prepared and you can just sort of just simply look at your account. I think also having a business credit card is great because you can use those for points and miles. And so I personally have used business credit cards. Actually, for my wedding, I used miles to be able to pay for my flight to Hawaii. And so yeah, I think having a credit card is amazing just because you can get points. And if you're spending the money anyway, especially if you're dropping like thousands of dollars, like for example on camera equipment, digital online things, so such as like Adobe Adobe Lightroom or like my website hosting platforms and things of that sort, that costs a lot of money. And it's like, I might as well get points for these things. And there's so many business credit cards and banks you can use. So for example, like you can do any major banks, but I also know there are online banks that you can use too, specifically for small businesses. These are just things to maybe just keep in mind when it comes to like finances. That way it's not too overwhelming for you. And that way you'll be better prepared when that comes up. And then maybe eventually you can hire a CPA, and a CPA is just someone that helps you like manage your money. It helps you manage your taxes and payments, things of that sort. All right, so my next point is basically like websites and SEO and AI. I want to put these all in like one little category because I feel like they kind of overlap. And so for websites, there's a lot of platforms you can use. I would recommend, if you are a beginner, to use Pixieset if you're a photographer, just because it's an all-in-one platform, which is great for like gallery hosting and like invoice and contracts, things of that sort. I personally use Pixieset not for my website, but for everything else. If you are not a photographer and you're just other creatives, then like things like Squarespace and Wix is great for your own personal website. But if you're also selling like digital and physical products and you're really just starting out, then something like Etsy, which is very simple. You can just upload a product onto Etsy. They take a little bit of a cut, but it's very easy because all you have to do is kind of just put your information in there, and then they kind of handle everything else. I do know Shopify is another big one, which is another platform where you can kind of build your own website, and it's specifically for stores, which is great. And then if you want your own website, then again, maybe Squarespace, Wix, or even something more advanced like WordPress can be great. I personally use a platform called Showit, which is mostly tailored for photographers, but they also have like coaching, or if you have like a blog or something like that, they have like a lot of really amazing templates. Their work is very beautiful. Definitely is more on the pricier side. I only use them just because it's, again, very beautiful, and I just kind of like love their work. I was using WordPress prior though, and I had used Squarespace prior too, but I kind of like the creative freedom that Showit kind of gives me, that, which is kind of nice. And then I recommend just learning a little bit of SEO. So if you don't know what SEO is, SEO is search engine optimization. And so for example, let's say you type in photographers in New York City, you will see maybe 20 results, and whoever comes like in those results, those are all thanks to SEO. And so just knowing, I think, a little bit SEO, especially when starting out, because it kind of gives you an idea of like the direction you want to go. So like, let's say, for example, I'm a Houston wedding photographer and I specify in photojournalism, then those are just like keywords that I want to keep in mind when I'm working on my website or working on my Instagram. And that way, those keywords can kind of help me rank in website platforms such as Google. And I think it kind of gives you a little bit more of a clear idea of too. And then I would say use AI a lot. I love AI. I use it so much for like helping me with my website and also helping me with keywords. For example, I'm writing like a passage about who I am like on my website. I will use AI to help fix it up or make it like sound a different way or a little bit better or a bit smoother, because maybe the way I kind of originally wrote it, maybe it didn't sound as clear, and so AI can be really helpful into like fixing that. And I use AI a lot, like almost my entire website. Like I have, sifted it through AI just to check for grammar mistakes and just to like, again, make sure it sounds nice or easy to read, or it might help come out with ideas on how to like make it like fix it in general. And then AI is great for like writing emails or just like connecting things. And I think you can even now submit your website to like, for example, like ChatGPT. And so you can really ask it like specific things, or, sometimes I might say like, hey, ChatGPT, here's a list of keywords I want to use and I want to make a sentence or a paragraph out of this. Can you help me with that? And it does it. So I love AI for that. And so AI has saved me so much time. Like, it's literally chef's kiss. 10 to recommend. All right, so my next point is overcoming fear, because I feel like a lot of us want to do some type of small business, but maybe we're feeling too scared or we don't know where to start. So I would say, again, earlier, take small steps. Do not put too much pressure on you. Think of it as a hobby or a fun passion, or a fun project, or just a little side hustle. That way it's not too much pressure on you, because it's all about just starting small. Sometimes the hardest part of things is just beginning, but if you don't overwhelm yourself with too much information or too much knowledge or too much like things, or maybe you're comparing yourself too much, I would say just take it one step at a time. It'll make it a lot more easier and digestible to begin, because once you begin, then it kind of starts snowballing from there. And I would say one thing that's helped me a lot is appreciating a journey and not exactly the end goal. I'm really big into like Buddhism and just like a lot of those type of books. A lot of what Buddhism will say is kind of detaching from the outcome. And I think that's really helpful because if you're like focusing on just trying to make a certain amount of money or getting a certain amount of clients, then that can be like really stressful and it can be like a lot of pressure. And if you don't hit it, then you feel bad and then you end up quitting. But if you kind of focus a little bit more on a journey and like the experience you get and the knowledge you get just from like the journey itself, then I feel like it could be so much more rewarding and it can feel really exciting actually, because then it's not about the end goal, it's about the person you become throughout all this experience. Like for me, I feel like I've learned so much about business and communicating and talking to people and how to sound more professional, or how do I work on a website. Things like this has been really fun, and I feel like I just, again, grown so much as a person, so that way I'm just a better, not just businesswoman, but I could apply this to other parts of my life. And so again, I think appreciating the journey is like super helpful in terms of like overcoming fear, because then you're not attached to the outcome. And I feel like that's what scares a lot of people. Just have fun with it and just learn as you go. Understand that fear is a normal part of the human journey and the human experience. And so if you are scared, just accept that that's normal and you don't have to feel bad about being fearful. I'm also scared of things too, and I'm also scared of starting up things. Sometimes like recording a YouTube video, I'm scared. A handful of times like filming this, I was trying to psych myself out of doing it, and sometimes it's just like overcoming the fear and then just doing it anyway. But knowing that the fear is just part of the journey, so maybe it's accepting I do have fear, but I'm still going to do this regardless. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit of what a day in my life is as a photographer or a small business owner. I don't have much footage of me actually shooting, but I can just show you some stuff I do at home, so let's get into it. It is post-editing Daycia. I just kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit of like how I sort of work as a photographer. So let's just say I've already done my shoot, I've already met all the people. Then normally what I'll do is I'll toss it into this like AI program called Aftershoot. Aftershoot is a really cool program because it takes pretty much all the images I've taken and then it culls it down into like less images. This engagement shoot that I did, for example, this engagement shoot, I took over 600 pictures. That's a lot. That's actually kind of wild, but it took it down to 70 photos for me. Blur or like eyes closed, things like that. And then it'll kind of like edit it down and take the best photos out of all the 600 pictures. And of course, like I'll go through it too manually. Like it might actually do like 90 pictures, but I'll take it down to 70, for example. And then after that, I will actually put it into Lightroom, which is another photo editing app. And then this is kind of basically where I'll correct the pictures. So this is kind of like my editing style, for example, and then you can kind of see like the before and after. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'll do. So I'll go through all of the 70 pictures that I've taken, and then I will just see like how it looks, and I'll just edit it and correct the colors and just kind of put it into like my style. And then eventually like maybe I'll fix some things. Like this before picture, actually, like I had to use Photoshop, added the extra water through Photoshop AI, by the way, which has been a pretty cool program. We will meet with a client at a specific location, maybe for an hour if it's like an engagement shoot, 8 hours if it's a wedding, and then I will use AI to help me edit down all the photos. Then I will put it up into Lightroom, and then I will individually go through each photo and edit them myself to make sure that they look good. And that is my workflow and day of life. And then sometimes that can take me, depending, it could take me, you know, 1-2 days, or if it's a wedding, it could be like almost about a week, just because it is thousands of pictures that I go through it. And sometimes I'll do video too on top of that. Okay, so now that you got to see sort of like a day in life of a small business owner and the things I do, I now want to talk about income, which I'm sure is a big one for a lot of people. So on average, I personally make about 2.5K to 3K a month. I know to a lot of people that might not sound like a lot, but for me, it's actually enough because I live in Texas, and so my cost of living is a lot lower, and I also live with my husband, or you know, if people have roommates, then that helps a lot, especially again in Texas where cost of living is so low. Maybe compared to New York, this might be kind of pushing it a bit, but it's enough for me where the bills are paid and I can actually save a little bit, and I can also sort of kind of go out a little bit every now and then. I do tend to live below my means, so I don't go too crazy. I don't go out often, and I kind of make sure that I have savings first before I will do anything big or reckless. I don't know if I should say reckless, but overall, I do try to just keep my expenses low. I'm also getting paid, you know, not a lot, maybe in comparison to some people, but that is how much I am making, and it works for me because I have a lot more more time so I can do my time doing other things, such as creating. For example, I've been doing a lot of like self-studying and like self-investment, so a lot of reading, and I work out a lot, and I'm in school, and so I do have things like homework and projects that I have to work on, and so I do need this time to invest into other things, especially because I do have other goals and projects that I personally need to accomplish and work on. And so I could make more, to be honest. Like, I could scale it more, but I really do kind of like the bare minimum. Maybe not the bare minimum, but enough. I put in a lot of work, but I could just be doing a lot more. As a photographer, I could be going to like wedding expos, or I could be running ads, or I think I could also diversify my income streams. I know a lot of photographers will do like courses and stuff like that. Maybe that's something I might consider in the future, but diversifying your income is really helpful and big. Some photographers might hire the people so they can take on more clients. There's a lot I could do, but again, I just am keeping it at this level for now because it works for me. There are small business owners and artists and stuff that are making a lot more, and I do think if money is your goal, then I definitely think having multiple streams of income is a really good idea. On doing so, whether that's through social media or through, again, courses or teaching, great way to really scale yourself. And then, maybe again, eventually I will get to that point. Things that I'm currently working on just for my personal self and my personal goals. And so that's where my time is going right now. And then my last piece of advice I would say for starting a small business is to tell a story. I think having a story is so important and so essential because it really kind of gives you a purpose on what you're doing. So for example, for me, I have it in my website that I started photography back in 2012 when I first lived abroad in Japan, and taking pictures was something really important to me because it was capturing a moment in life that I knew that I wouldn't get back. And so I became really into photography because it's really like freezing a moment in time that I can always look back on. And it's really cool as a photographer because I can now do that for other people. I can take their wedding pictures, something that's super important for them, and I'm going to be looking at those photos for years, and they probably might even pass it down to generations, right? And just knowing that I sort of made that impact in their lives, I think is really beautiful. And so I think having a story is really great because it also allows people who might be interested in you or working with you or hiring you or purchasing from you, it kind of gives them more of a connection to your work, and also it gives you more purpose and passion for your work too. And then share your story with the world. Maybe that means also creating content. I think documenting is great. Something I don't do, something I should do more often, especially because I want to be a lot more transparent with my content creation in general and sharing my life story with you all, because I've done a lot of different things that's led to this point. My first video is me 20 years old in Japan, and now I'm 32. But I think that's a great way to just sort of be able to share with people like who you are, and also it's a great way to market to being able to like create content and just creating like Instagram reels or YouTube videos. It's an amazing way to like market yourself. And so I definitely recommend telling a story, connecting it, sharing who you are, show your personality, show it all, because there's only one you, and I think that's always really cool and beautiful thing to have. And that is it. Thank you so much, my sunnies, for being here. If you enjoyed this video, here's some other videos you can check out. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I do have a Discord, so please join in. And I look forward to seeing you guys in future videos. Take care. Bye.